The king was delighted. Okay,
That's
what?
wild.
What?
You have an automaton with organic flesh like us and organs like us that can sing and dance and perfectly sing on tune, apparently.
And flirt with the ladies in
And
attendance.
yeah, and an entity that was very, interactive with the people. And I think that's a really fascinating thing.
So if they had that in our history of 400 BCE, then like Atlantis, just imagine with their technology, with the
Yeah.
knowledge that they had, with the use of the crystals, just imagine what they had created. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Empowered Spirit Healing. I am very excited today. We are finally getting into the third destruction of Atlantis, and I have the beautiful Jennifer joining with me again. How are you going today, Jennifer?
I'm great, Paula. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm a little bit sad that we've had a bit of a gap between the episodes, but there has just been so much for us to learn and absorb. There is just a lot that has happened, and we're going to be deep diving into all of that today for you guys, which we're so excited about. And I can't wait to like see in the comments and just hear what people think about what we're going to bring to you today, because it's like the third destruction just gets to the next level.
Yeah, it gets wilder and wilder, and it's been a good time. It's really eye-opening, and it gives a just so many different perspectives on our world. So I appreciate all of that.
Mhm. Me too. Absolutely. All right, and I'll just quickly share. There's just another reason why there was a little bit of a delay with videos, and I had a couple of weeks off YouTube just because I was moving our Fusion Body studio, which I do with Bryce from Esoteric Atlanta. We just moved to a new platform, and that's really exciting. So, for anybody that has not checked us out before, please have a look at that. It is an amazing platform, and we have amazing content on there, the best exercise classes, and we have spiritual courses and tapping and post-workout meditation, so much amazing stuff. So I will include the link for that below in the description box. But let's get into it. I'm going to bring up
Yes.
the slide.
Yes. I wanted to circle back a little bit before we get too much into the third about
Yes.
Noah and a few things I learned after our previous Casey recordings. So
Yes.
one was Noah and his Ark from the Bible, and the other one was the Atlantean race. So Edgar Cayce did a reading, and he stated that the Iroquois Indians were of the closest, purest descendants from Atlantis. And those
Mhm.
are a Native American tribe here in the United States. So I thought that was interesting. So I wanted to correct myself. So that kind of made me think more about our indigenous people and their skin tones and things like that. And I just think that a majority of our indigenous people were probably the descendants of the Atlanteans that circulated throughout the earth
Yes.
during those destructive times. And then Noah really got fascinating because I did not know, but apparently Edgar read the soul of Noah. There was a young child who could predict storms and was terrified of storms. And here we have parents that tried everything and finally ended up taking him to Casey. And Casey basically said, well, he was a high initiate during the times of Atlantis. And he basically went into the whole Noah story, which is also very interesting because I never really thought of Noah being a high initiate of Atlantis
Mhm.
ever. But but I do remember hearing that he could communicate and he was being told what to do. And he was probably utilizing the two eye stone,
Yeah.
the Atlanteans' communication with the Sately realm. And there were also many Noahs in ancient cultures, I should say Noah style characters in ancient cultures in different places. So these were the high initiates of Atlantis fleeing. So I just wanted to kind of start with that. And then,
Well, if I can just add in there, I think that's very
yes,
interesting because it kind of puts a little bit of a different perspective on many of the people in the Bible because there were certain people like Abraham and, and like Noah, and then there were many different people in the Bible that received communication from the saintly realm, from God, angels, whatever it was. And it just makes you wonder, was there use of a crystal, but that just wasn't mentioned in the Bible?
This may be a touchy subject for some, but I want to mention something else about crystals and a lot of the people that are really heavily devoted in the Christian faith. And
Hmm.
we hear so many things out there. Crystals are evil, crystals are satanic and demonic and things like that. And I just wonder if it's in their collective consciousness from the crystals basically destroying Atlantis and that great catastrophic event that took place. And that's embedded in their subconscious because we have to remember the darkness took everything that the light created and inverted it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we all pretty much know that at this point. But I believe that the two-eye stone was referenced in the Bible as the mighty crystal. I think Casey
Oh,
mentions that as
really?
well. And one of the,
Mm.
yeah, I read that somewhere along my line of studying him. But yeah, I thought that was really, it's fun to put things together, like
Yeah, to
piece
connect
it
the dots.
together. And I just think the Bible probably was mostly about the Atlanteans. I'm beginning to think that these were the high initiates of Atlantis potentially, and
Yeah, I think so.
they just left that yeah they met that little part out.
And it makes sense that if Atlantis was destroyed from the use of crystals going too far, then of course it makes sense that that trauma would be in our
Yes.
bodies, in our memories, passed down from generations, whether our personal soul had a life in Atlantis or not. But it's extremely likely that we did, seeing as though it was such a huge span of time. But it makes sense that, a lot of people could be triggered by the use of crystals for healing because if there's trauma there, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I also wonder, like I mentioned, the light creates, the dark infiltrates. Well,
Uh-huh.
that's an excellent way for, we'll just say, the
Certain groups of
system,
people. Hmm.
yeah, to continue on with that narrative, to push that they're bad and they're evil because it's a form of mind manipulation and consciousness manipulation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But
So,
anyhow,
yeah, I think it's really, really interesting. And I think it's also just interesting to note. So, the two eye stone was actually, it says Edgar Cayce said it was a six-sided figure. And so, mainly at the beginning, it was used to communicate with the saintly realms. And then, over many generations, then it turned into powering all of the spaceships and the transport and, the radios and televisions and all of the kind of incredible technology they actually had in Atlantis. But that was over, a huge span of time. Yeah.
yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, the saintly realm was the ones that taught them that. They were the
Yeah.
ones that taught them to get the free energy and you can build these buildings and this stone, if you alchemize the stone correctly with the sun's rays, it'll power the whole Atlantis powered neighboring continents. Not only itself, but neighboring continents per the Casey readings.
It's just so incredible.
Interesting.
I
I
know.
know.
It's amazing. Oh, so yeah, I think that was everything we wanted to go back over, didn't we? Yeah.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
just wanted to update everybody because we are just learning more and more as we are getting deeper and deeper into this. So it's fascinating.
There will be times when we backpedal and correct things because we are constantly learning this stuff. And yeah,
Exactly.
there's just so
And
much information.
and we want to give as accurate information as we can. So, if we realize that we might have said something wrong in the past, we're going to correct it in future
Yes.
videos. So, yeah. But yeah, let's get into Atlantis and the final destruction according to Edgar Cayce. Okay,
Yeah.
so we got our friend ChatGPT to create a map again because it's so helpful. I mean, me trying to draw this myself, it's just yeah, it's just not possible. So this is the last period of Atlantis, which was around 10,500 BC. And it basically, after it had been kind of destroyed after the first two
Second.
destructions, it was kind of left with, well, according to Edgar Cayce's readings, it was left with three great islands that were Poseidia, Arian, and Og. And, and there was some smaller islands about them. And Poseidia was the main island, and this is where the Amilius group uh, lived, and they lived in in the great capital, which is here. And I just think it's very interesting to note that based on the readings, because I asked ChatGPT to create this based on Edgar Cayce's readings, and it's come up with a capital that's in a circle, and there's all these little canals running all the way through. So it's almost like it's like a moat around all of it, protecting the Amilius group. And Edgar Cayce did say that the Belial group was jealous and did not like that the Amilius group was in Poseidia and had all of that to themselves.
I can only imagine the monstrosity of the temples
Yeah.
on Poseidia, what
Oh,
was left, even before the third fall,
mhm.
how huge that temple must have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
You couldn't
Sorry.
just sail in there and pull on up to any of that. That was all
Yeah.
very protected.
There's like lots of little bridges and stuff around there. And so I imagine they would have been very well guarded.
Yeah.
But I love some of the names of the little places around here. So like
Yes.
the Bay of Peace, and then there's like the Temple of the Sun, and what were some of the other ones? Like there's the Harbor of Trident. I find that very interesting, um, because of, like Poseidia has his trident.
This is the Greek mythology bleeding through the Atlantean. It's a very similar thing. So I believe that's probably where Greek mythology and all that came from was the Atlantean time.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. And this is where we're finding so many dots are connecting with
Yes.
Atlantis and with our, a lot of our history and all the different civilizations around the world. So much of it seems to connect back to Atlantis, which I just think is so fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah, and I love like Mountains of the Might. But
Yeah,
yeah.
and Og, I mean, is it Gog and Magog from the Bible? I feel
Hmm.
terrible. I'm not a biblical scholar by any means, so but
Yeah,
yeah, that's an interesting reference as well.
isn't it?
Yep.
I know it is. It's
And even the Aryan like the Aryan island, I mean, Helena Blavatsky goes into the different races of men, and I think the Atlantean period, she named it as the Aryan period,
Yeah,
right?
I think that's actually us. So we're the next. So we're
Okay.
the fifth root race. That because yeah, Helena Blavatsky talks about seven root races, which I've only just recently learned about, and I'm like, oh my God, this
Yeah,
is so
me too.
fascinating.
Yeah.
And so Atlantis was the fourth. Lemuria
Okay.
was the third root race, and so with the we're the fifth root race, and we're called the Aryans. So that's very interesting that that island is that, and then we end up being
Yeah.
called that. And then there's two more root races to come, but we don't know what they are yet because they
Yeah.
haven't developed. So
We
that's
haven't
what we're
gotten
going to
there.
be.
Yeah.
We're merging into the sixth root race. So according to Helena Blavatsky's work. So it's very interesting.
Interesting.
Hmm.
It's very interesting when we're at a time for like a social collective for humanity to move there to into the fifth race, and then we're getting all this transhumanism AI stuff pushed down our throat. So what are they trying to steer us off of our spiritual path?
They're distracting us with a lot.
Yeah,
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 that's very interesting.
yeah.
So what we wanted to share is that the Amilius group knew that the destruction was coming. And they started to prepare themselves, and many of the high priests started to prepare themselves. They had a lot of information scrolls and things that they gathered together. So they had knowledge and information of the land that they came from because they knew it was going to be destroyed. And over quite a long period of time, this wasn't just, oh, the island's going to get destroyed tomorrow. Let's leave. No, they had, I think they probably had, I don't know if it was months or maybe years, I'm not sure. But isn't that interesting? It's almost like the Noah story in the Bible, that Noah knew about the flood coming and he was prepared, so he built the boat. And this happened over a very long period of time. It's not like he just built the boat in a couple of days.
Yeah, because didn't
So,
he allegedly live to be about 900 years old?
yeah.
Wasn't Noah around 900 or something years old, allegedly, per the Bible? But
Hmm.
yeah, I just, yeah, they knew, and they also got people who wanted to flee out of there as well. The
Hmm.
Amelius group, again, like with the previous destructions, they got people transportation and got them out of harm's way, and then they're the ones that stayed.
Hmm.
And but I think they also had the knowledge from the destructions prior. They
Yeah,
they knew
they'd
that the
learnt.
island, they knew what the Belial group was up to 20,000 years prior to that.
Hmm.
They knew.
Yeah, so they were
So,
prepared.
so I think about like even with Blavinsky, this how they knew the root race. Like I wonder if they were into, I think they were into the root races too, the Atlanteans were. I'd have to do a little more study on that. But if they knew that there was that turn, that race was ending and it was time for a
Uh-huh.
new dawn of humanity, I don't know. I'm just trying to go into their heads a little bit.
I wouldn't be surprised if the high priest knew that. And that's probably another reason why they wanted to spread all over the world.
And they sent the knowledge with them.
Yes, because they
So the knowledge,
knew, yeah, that they
yep,
needed that.
they need to preserve. And I think some of the knowledge, I think it was bits and pieces of it. I feel like they separated the knowledge. Um, and then there's only those three places Casey says that they buried the Atlantean records.
Yes,
That
that's
would
right.
probably be like a full collection of the Atlantean knowledge and all their destructions and all that.
And just for those that can't remember, so the three locations was Bimini Road, um, the Sphinx, and I always forget the third one,
The Yucatan,
the Yucatan. That's right.
the
So, well,
man, yeah,
we'll just share. So we've just got this little map, and I've just put Atlantis was here.
was once there, allegedly, potentially. We brought up this map to just kind of give people an idea of where all the Atlanteans refugees went to.
Mhm.
And, they went to the Yucatan. And what's really interesting is there's a lot of mystery around the mounds here in my neck of the world, because they say the Native Americans built the mounds. Well, it was the Yucatan descendants of Atlantis that migrated north up into Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio, and they became the mound builders. So they were utilizing the Atlantean technology, and it's also mentioned that they were giving honor to what had fallen. So that explains the circular things.
Mhm. Mhm.
So where else did they go, Paula?
So they also went to Central America and Nevada, Colorado, Utah, North America, Arizona, Egypt, and Spain. So that's
Yes.
all in Edgar Cayce's readings, that they're all the locations they went to.
And I
Oh,
think there's
sorry.
more.
Oh, and the
I think
Pyrenees.
there's
Yeah.
Yes, the parent. Well, yeah, and I think there's more places, but this is what we came across in the readings that we have in the books we have.
Yes.
But I think it's really fascinating how extremely beautiful and mysterious our Grand Canyon is here in the United States.
Mhm.
Sedona, in Colorado, they have like high cliffs where you could tell there was civilizations living there, and there's this like, how do they get up there? So I
Yeah.
believe that this is all of the Atlantean, the refugees of Atlantis, who
Mhm.
came in and started building a lot of these things. And even in a lot of our Native American indigenous tribes, they talk about the star people and things like that. Well, the Atlanteans had airships. And I just wonder if this was the Atlanteans visiting them.
Mhm.
Every, it's all up to interpretation, but it just would kind of button up and kind of connect some dots.
It makes a lot of sense, and especially when you're looking at the Egyptian hieroglyphs. And so a lot of people that are
Yes.
talking about the ancient aliens, and they're saying that there's these little spaceships in the ancient, I mean, in the Egyptian hieroglyphs. And it's like, well, okay, yes, there's a possibility that they're aliens, but there's a huge possibility, and I think, in my opinion, a more likely possibility that they were the Atlantean survivors that flew in their ships and came to these different places around the world, and they were the gods that were talked about.
And even if we kind of backtrack a little bit to the first destruction, when they had the League of Nations meet about how to combat the large land beasts and
Yeah.
fowl of the air, they went in their little space cars to those meetings.
Yes.
So, I mean, that was 50, I think it was 50,000 years ago per the Casey reading. So that was a long while ago.
Uh-huh.
That would make a lot of sense to me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and so it just seems that they spread all over the world and yeah, basically shared their knowledge. And so they would have appeared as gods to the high priests anyway. The high priests would have appeared as gods to the primitive people.
And I want to mention one other thing about a lore from a Native American lore. And we have in South Dakota, we have the Badlands, and it's a desert. And it's interesting because I believe in some of the studies I've did over the years, the Native Americans of that region spoke about the shining people or the glistening people.
Uh-huh.
And they said that they had lived there where the Badlands are now, but they lived there and they had crystal palaces and they were very etheric, very light-bodied. And it's interesting to
Whoa.
me that now it's literally a desert. And you just wonder if, a lot of these Amilius group, these highly spiritual initiates fled and they were still taken out by the Belial group. And that's why we have deserts in certain places today.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Especially in Australia, in the middle of Australia, like we have it's the Nullarbor here, and many people drive across the Nullarbor from Perth over to the eastern states, which is what more people would have heard of. Over in the eastern states, we've got Queensland up here, and we've got Sydney and Melbourne down here. They're the more popular places that people will tend to go to if they come to Australia, whereas Perth's pretty tiny and isolated all the way down here. But in between Australia, we have the Nullarbor, which is a huge desert land, and there is just nothing for miles. There just might be a roadhouse here and there that you can fill up your petrol. And I'm anybody that's driven across the Nullarbor, like you've got guts. There is just no way I would do that. I'm just too, maybe I've watched too many horror movies and stuff, but I'm just like, I'm not going to go across the Nullarbor. Um,
Yeah.
but why? Why do we have a huge desert area? Even in where you guys have in America, in Las Vegas, that was a huge desert area that was built upon, wasn't it?
Yes. And you know what else I'm thinking of off the top of my head is we all have to side-eye narratives. If there's like a mainstream media or even alternative media pushing narratives, we need to wonder why, because there's been a search for Atlantis forever.
Uh,
And it's very interesting to me because there is an area in the Sahara Desert that is circular that they can see from the sky, and they think that that's
oh,
Atlantis. Well, I thought about the Casey reading where he said they honored the Atlanteans by creating the circular structure. So that made a lot of sense to me that that was the ones that fled Atlantis. They took that knowledge and they made circular things there. And why is that in a desert? Again, here we go with the desert.
And Egypt too, because Egypt's like a big desert as well, isn't it? Where the pyramids
Think
are.
about how much they destroyed in Egypt. Why is this stuff buried in sand? Is it because they did a huge blow? I don't know.
Wow.
We're just seeking answers and just wondering what
Yeah.
happened.
Look, we don't
And
know, but we're
we
just
don't
putting
know. It's good.
we're putting points together, and it's very, very interesting.
It is because it's a different perspective of
Yeah.
it all.
Hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. Is there anything else we wanted to add here about all of this?
No, I think we're ready to move on to the Poseidia slide.
Yes. So, the Temple of Poseidia. Would you like to read the quote?
I would love to. In the Atlantean land before the third destruction, dash dash assisted Alta, the scribe, in preparing a history of the land from reading 339-1, taken May 27th, 1933.
So it's interesting that there's those two dashes there, and we were thinking that it might have been the person's name.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
forgot all about that until I went to read it. I'm glad you brought that up because I do wonder if it's somebody's name that
Mhm.
they redacted, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's probably like Marilyn Monroe or something. No, I'm just kidding. Because he read all these actresses and actors and stuff and presidents and all that.
Yeah, he
That's
did a
probably
lot
why
of
they
famous
redacted
people.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's fair enough. So yeah, so it's interesting because this quote is showing us how that they knew that the destruction was coming. So they were preparing, and they had scribes who were writing the history down on scrolls and whatever else they used at that time. And they were taking that information with them around the world so that it wouldn't get lost. And then of course they chose those three specific locations to put a lot of it there. And it's believed that I think Edgar Cayce says that, it can't be, well, I know, especially with the Sphinx, that people can't even get access there unless you're of the right frequency. And I don't think that that's going to happen until the world as a whole collective, in my personal opinion, I think we've got to reach a higher vibration. We've got a bit more soul work to do before we're going to be able to gain access to that.
Yeah.
I just hope it happens in our lifetime because I want to
I
know.
know. I'd love to see it.
I'm so nosy.
I would love to see it. It would be great. He's been talking about it for years, and it's just hard to say what's really going on behind the scenes with all of that. But yeah.
Mhm. And did you want to talk a little bit about what the Poseidia, like in Poseidia, the what it was like with the water and um,
They built canals around the Poseidius, it showed in the map, but
mhm,
Casey specifically mentioned that they had built it to where the water was all natural and flowing, which sounds to me like waterfalls. So he mentioned that if the water was going over natural rocks, it would purify spaces.
mhm.
And he said some spaces up to 20 feet, and it purified people's homes, their energy, all of that was just constant being cleaned and purified. So I think it's really fascinating that for the most part, many of us love the sound of waterfalls.
Mhm.
We love the sound of rivers, gushing water. And I think that may be why. Again, there's another dot and bit because I have a waterfall, not like a natural waterfall, but up the road from my house. And there's a lot of times I'll just go sit there and listen to it. It's just so
Yeah.
soothing and comforting. And I always feel really great after I do that.
Mhm.
And then I read this Casey reading and I just thought, oh, well, that's really fascinating. Is that what's occurring? And I'm not the only one that does that. There's many of us I'll see down there
Oh yeah.
just absorbing that sound. So it's doing something naturally to us. And we've just gotten, I know there's many of us that are looking into more natural things. And it just makes me sad how we're being pushed away from natural things,
Yeah.
everything around us. But yeah, so he talks about that and he talks about how you had to have a passport to get in and out of Atlantis and that there were like tunnels underwater and caverns to get in there.
Mhm.
So if you think about like our political seats of governance, we'll say our capitals and things like that, how they're designed, you really, I mean, I think some of them you can just walk right into, but I just think it's kind of a mimic of what Atlantis was.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I mean, for
yeah,
anybody that's watched the Disney Atlantis movie, I find it very interesting that the guy that, finally figures out where Atlantis is. I mean, they're saying it's near Ireland in the movie. And like, I quite disagree with that, obviously, based on Edgar Cayce's readings, but it's just a fun kids
it's
movie. But
yeah.
I
Well, they
find
got to
it,
send you in a different direction,
of
just like
course,
the Sahara Desert. I feel like that's just a narrative to send us in a different
distraction.
direction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. But I find it interesting that in the movie, the people that are going to find Atlantis in their little submarine thing, they have to go through this little tunnel. And it's like they come up and then they pop up to where they
Wow.
can be above the water again. And it's like in this cave. And then that's how they get access to Atlantis. When I
That,
watched it the other
that's
day,
so
because
interesting.
we're doing the research for Atlantis, I'm like, oh, it'll be fun to watch that movie because I've watched it since I was a kid. And I was just sitting there going, no way. I'm like, Jennifer, no way. Because you told me about that. And then
Helena,
I'm like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's what they showed in the movie, that's
isn't
what
that
happened.
wild? So, the producers must have been reading Helena Blavinsky's books because she's the one that talks about that too. I'm not sure which book it's in, but yeah, it's just mind-blowing to me.
It might
And
be in
those,
the
those
secret
tunnels are
doctrine.
still there. All that stuff is still there.
Well, that's the thing. And it's like, oh my goodness, what if there's some survivors that are still living there? I mean, that's a bit wild, but
That's yeah, I don't know, man. I know they lived to 900 years old, but man, I don't know, that'd be stressful. That'd be so stressful if there were survivors down there. But I think about like even here in the United States, all the tunnels and aquifers under our country, and it's like, was that built by the refugees from Atlantis?
yeah.
I never, I just thought of this.
Hmm.
Are they the ones that knew that was there and how to harness the power of it?
So interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Seems like all roads lead back to Atlantis. I don't know why we're saying Rome
I
because
know.
the more I learn, the more I'm thinking, I don't know.
Yeah, so
Rome wants
much.
to think all roads lead there, but
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm thinking all roads lead to Atlantis. Absolutely. How
yes.
fascinating. Okay, so now we're going to move on to these incredible chalk cliffs just near France. Did you want to read the quote, Jennifer?
Sure. In Atlantis, during periods of the breaking up of the land, set sail for Egypt, but ended up in the Pyrenees in what are now Portuguese, French, and Spanish lands. In Calais, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that.
Oh, I probably wouldn't say it any better.
I yeah, in Calais may still be seen the marks in the chalk cliffs of the entity's followers as attempts were made to create a temple activity for the followers of the Law of One. First to establish a library of knowledge in 10,300 BC and what later became Alexandria in Egypt. That was from reading 315-4 on June 13th, 1934. But it's mind blowing to me that these high initiates were trying to set up temples. And I noticed he put in here, the chalk cliffs of the entity's followers as attempts were made. So
Hmm.
they were just constantly getting attacked from the Belial group. That's how I read that. How do you read that, Paula?
Yeah, that's very interesting because they're trying to create a temple somewhere for their followers and for them to, be able to settle. And yeah, it's interesting that there's attempts being made and they're not having much success with that. Yeah,
Which brings me back to the South Dakota Badlands. Was there a temple of Amilius there? In
yeah.
the Grand Canyon, was there a temple of Amilius there? And then also in your neck of the woods, like, what was there that had to
Hmm.
be wiped from our planet?
Yeah. Hmm.
According to them,
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
very interesting. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
yeah.
then later, so they wanted to establish a library of knowledge of all of the information that they had from Atlantis. And it later became the Library of Alexandria in Egypt.
The
So,
Great Library of Alexandria is such a mystery to all of us.
isn't it?
And how much sense does this make now that if these Casey readings are correct, that this would have been the ones that fled that tried to keep the knowledge?
And
And how does
obviously the Belial group would not want that
no?
knowledge to be kept. So maybe they were the ones that caused the fire.
How do you burn like stone? I'm still wondering how that works.
I know.
How do you burn stone? Like this wasn't like wood, it's a wood structure at all.
Mhm.
From I just don't think it would if it is the refugees from Atlantis, they would have brought the technology with them to build these style of temples, which makes a lot of sense around the world. We've mentioned Tartaria before. This, I believe, in my opinion, is probably Atlantean technology,
Mhm.
not Tartarian. That is Atlantean technology.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
I know.
it's just fascinating to me of how big this library would have been and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's just crazy. And I've always felt really sad whenever I've heard about the Library of Alexandria being destroyed because I'm just like,
Too.
oh, all that knowledge just
Me
being
too.
ruined.
But and then you hear so many different things. Well, there was
Mm,
only tax scrolls in there, or I think a lot of the information probably was taken out before it was set afire.
I hope so.
Obviously, they set the scrolls on fire, that those obviously would catch fire. But I just think it's really crappy for humanity because there was knowledge lost again.
Yeah, absolutely. But,
Yeah.
I have hope that there's these three locations that
Yes.
when it's the right time, once we're at the right vibration, we can access that knowledge and gain it back once humanity's ready to receive it and do the right thing with it, not use
Yes.
it for all their selfish
Right.
reasons. And
Casey did.
maybe, I mean, thinking about Helena Blavatsky and the root races, maybe we won't be able to access it until we've moved into the sixth root
Oh.
race.
Because Casey did say that they'd have to be in attune with the one creator to even come close to it, to be able
Uh-huh.
to unlock it, find it, discover it.
And that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And I think I'm sure there's a specific soul or
Mhm.
entity that will be their task
Yeah.
when they come down here to incarnate.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
and they most probably were somebody that was a high priest in Atlantis.
Yeah, a high initiate.
Yeah,
And one thing I
absolutely.
think you've mentioned before in some of our different videos, as far as like the Amilius group, what they called them, they were priest kings.
Yes.
That's what we
High
call them,
priest.
were priest kings. And I think that's a really fascinating term
Hmm.
that they were of this highly spiritual group, but they were kings as well.
Yes. And they
So,
were special because according to Gigi Young in the Mad Scientists of Atlantis video, which will be linked below in the playlist I've created, and she explains in that video that they were high priests. They were kind of special because I hate using the word special, but it's because they all had an immaculate conception. So that's what made them slightly different to everybody else. So they just had abilities and they would have practiced a lot of initiations to have more knowledge than your everyday person living in Atlantis. Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so now we have another quote that we're going to read. The Atlanteans are all exceptional. They either wield woe or great development, and their influences are felt, whether the individual recognizes it in himself or not. The entity was among the children of the law of one who made great overtures to those people for the acknowledging of the laborers and to make the experience easier. dash dash these laborers that were considered by many as merely things rather than individual souls. Reading 1744-1. Now, this is referring to what Edgar Cayce called the automatons. And the automatons are very, very interesting. And we believe that this is what caused the third destruction of Atlantis. There was the Belial group with the Amilius group. The Amilius group saw these automatons, which were like robots, and the Amilius, so they were kind of used as, well, laborers, as said, kind of slaves. They helped do various tasks in Atlantis. But the Amilius group respected them and appreciated them and saw them as beings that had the potential to develop souls or grow their soul, expand.
Yeah, they had the ability to advance spiritually.
Yes.
So, yeah, so because there was a lot of mixing of a lot of human DNA, animal DNA, and disgusting, quite frankly, what they
Mhm.
were doing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting because a lot of people talk about, the reptilians and Orion and all that. Well, the Atlanteans were creating crocodile people,
Yeah.
because they wanted to see if they could upstand or withstand climates differently and things like that.
Hmm.
So this is where it gets wild, folks.
Yeah.
Um,
So this was
is
the mad scientists, as Juju Young referred to them. The
yes.
Belial group basically were experimenting with DNA, and they were looking at how they could, I suppose, maybe it started off relatively innocently, and maybe they wanted to kind of create humans that could, yeah, like you just said, withstand more harsher climates and things like that. So Gigi Young said they were even mixing with insects and things like that, because,
Yes.
which is just crazy. But I guess if you think about like maybe like a cockroach that's got a hard
Or
back, that could
or
protect you.
but let's think about our mantis people. I mean,
Yes.
people have talked about mantis beings and like spider people
Yeah.
and think about like a lot of our pop culture, Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously something, yeah.
There. Yes. But
Wow.
what happened is the Belial group went a little bit too far, and they only saw them as slaves or laborers and just things like said here, merely just things that they could just use for their own pleasure, their own use, and had no respect for them. And so obviously the Belial group and the Amelia's group had their differences all along. But I think when all of this came about, I think it just pushed them too far, and it got them to the point where they were just like, no, this is not okay.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting. So, for anybody that has kind of looked into the whole ancient aliens kind of thing, and maybe has watched like Billy Carson or Matthew Lacroix, or there's various other people that talk about the whole Enki and Enlil story, which is in the book of Enoch. And what it is I always forget which one's which, but they were basically stepbrothers, and one of them was kind of for the people and the other one was not for the people. And it explains that they had all of these slave beings, and one of the brothers saw them as, same as the Amelius group, seeing them as beings with potential for spiritual development. And so it's saying, I guess it's been interpreted that they kind of messed with the DNA because they wanted to help those people evolve, those beings evolve. And then the other brother didn't want that and just wanted them to just be slaves and whatever. And so as soon as I read about this and learned about this, I was like, oh my goodness, this just makes me think of the Book of Enoch and Enki and Enlil. So it's very, very interesting if either the same thing was going on at the same, well, maybe at different periods of time? Or is the Book of Enoch another interpretation of Amilius and the Belial group?
That's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a
it
lot
is.
of there's just a lot of things that kind of just connect up to each other and are very similar.
There is. I mean, even like with Jesus, there's like I don't know, like 180 or something. I can't remember the number, so please don't quote me on that. But there is a lot of characters that have the Jesus story, that have the Virgin Mother, had an immaculate birth, had a carpenter as a father, died at 33, died on a cross. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. And then, like you said, that there's multiple Noah stories around the world. There's just so many of these stories from different parts of the world, different gods and goddesses, and that seem similar but have different names, even like Thoth and things like that. There's just so many connections. And so I
Yeah.
wonder, were there multiple of these people, or does it all connect back to Atlantis? Who knows?
I
Who
think it's a
knows?
fascinating thing to think about,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, I think so too. So, this picture is from a movie I watched. It's a movie called Hugo, and it's about this little boy from like the early 1900s, and his father passes away, but him and his father were working to get this robot to work again. And as soon as Jennifer was started talking to me about automatons, straight away I was just like, oh my gosh. And then when I watched this movie Hugo, this is called an automaton. They actually call it that in the movie. And I was just so blown away. So I was like, okay, this is going to be our picture of an automaton. But it's very interesting. So I'm just going to stop sharing the slide for a minute. And I just want to share with you this Wikipedia.
Yeah, we looked in a little bit of the history of the automatons, and they've been around this entire time.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up this Wikipedia page that you can have a look at, and it discusses how these were like the versions of robots back, way, thousands of years ago, before there were robots of what we think of today. And they're just kind of mechanical devices that work. We're not going to read all of this because it's a lot, but I think the one thing we wanted to share, Jennifer, was this guy. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. But he was a Greek inventor and the first head of the Great Library of Alexandria. And he used water to sound a whistle and make a model owl move. He invented the world's first cuckoo clock. So that's really interesting that, it dates as far back as Library of Alexandria. But what we wanted to share with you all was, in ancient China, a curious account of automata is found in the Lizi text, believed to have originated around 400 BCE and compiled around the 4th century CE. Within it, there is a description of a much earlier account between King Mu of Zhao, 1023 to 957 BCE, and a mechanical engineer known as Yan Shi, the artificer. The latter proudly presented the king with a very realistic and detailed life-size human-shaped figure of his mechanical handiwork. So we'll just share this little bit here. The king stared at the figure in astonishment. It walked with rapid strides, moving its head up and down, so that anyone would have taken it for a live human being. The artificer touched its chin and it began singing perfectly in tune. He touched its hand and it began posturing, keeping perfect time. As the performance was drawing to an end, the robot winked its eye and made advances to the ladies in attendance, whereupon the king became incensed and would have had Yan Shi executed on the spot, had not the latter, in mortal fear, instantly taken the robot to pieces to let him see what it really was. And indeed, it turned out to be only a construction of leather, wood, glue, and lacquer, variously coloured white, black, red, and blue. Examining it closely, the king found all the internal organs complete: a liver, gall, heart, lungs, spleen, kidneys, stomach, and intestines. And over these again, muscles, bones, and limbs with their joints, skin, teeth, and hair, all of them artificial. This is in 400 BCE, people. Like, this is just insane.
Wild.
The king tried the effect of taking away the heart and found that the mouth could no longer speak. He took away the liver and the eyes could no longer see. He took away the kidneys and the legs lost their power of locomotion. The king was delighted. Okay,
That's
what?
wild.
What?
You have an automaton with organic flesh like us and organs like us that can sing and dance and perfectly sing on tune, apparently.
And flirt with the ladies in
And
attendance.
yeah, and an entity that was very, interactive with the people, and I think that's a really fascinating thing.
So if they had that in our history of 400 BCE, then like Atlantis, just imagine with their technology, with the
Yeah,
knowledge that they had, with the use of the crystals, just imagine what they had created. So
yeah.
hence these automatons, which it seems like they looked just like human beings, but they just didn't have a soul as developed as human beings.
And I want to mention a couple of things as far as like popular culture with things we've heard. And one is an NPC, a
Yes.
non-playing character, a
Hmm.
backdrop person,
Yeah.
an organic portal. Um, I think Edgar Cayce called them half-souled people or undeveloped souls. And I think these are automatons. And I don't
Yeah,
think that they're any better or any worse than us. They're just here trying to spiritually evolve like we are.
exactly. And so then that leads us into some
Our pop culture
interesting,
stuff.
yeah, some interesting characters in our current Hollywood world.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of folks that are watching this have seen this Katy Perry picture. And this isn't the only entertainer will say that this kind of weird stuff happens to. They kind of glitch a little bit. And I just wonder if she's an automaton. I just wonder if this is what they're developing. And they talk about cloning people and that you just wonder, we really don't know.
No,
But you wonder if that's what they're doing. If reading back what was going on 400 BC with these automatons, they're advanced in it.
yeah,
And then we have our first lady here of the United States walking out with a robot saying this is what we need to teach our kids. This is what the future is. This is a robot that's going to teach your kids. So we can kind of see how they're shaping this reality for us.
yeah.
And that's where we need to be careful.
And that's triggering for me because I just think that the children are dependent on seeing facial expressions. I actually watched this video, a reel or something, of this lady. So, this mum, she's talking to her baby, who's about maybe 8 months or a year old. I'm not quite sure how old the baby was, but the baby was sitting there watching her mum and was reacting to her reactions and her smiling and talking and being all animated. And then all of a sudden, the mum just goes flat and just shows no expression and just be completely still. And she does this for a few minutes to see how the baby reacts. Well, the baby freaks out. I mean, it takes a few seconds, but after a little bit, the baby starts freaking out. Like, why is mum not moving? Why is there no facial expression? And then the baby starts crying and getting really upset and really stressed out. That is a
It,
prime example. Babies and children, we need to see you. I'm sorry, but no, you
it's
cannot have a
dehumanizing.
robot. You cannot have a robot that has no facial expression. That's how kids learn. Like monkey
And
see,
let's
monkey do.
and let's look at the Jetsons real quick. I don't know if any of you remember that
Yes.
cartoon when we were kids. I mean, they had the robot, I can't remember the maid that was a robot.
Yes.
Was it Rosie? I don't
Yeah,
know. Anyways,
I think it was
but,
Rosie.
she
Yeah.
was raising the kids, and it's like, well, what kind of social programming is in this stuff?
Yeah.
And how much of this stuff is actually true from maybe potentially 10,000 years ago?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But it's dehumanizing us. It's desensitizing us, especially they want to start it with the kids.
Yeah.
Because by the time the kids get to be adults, they're so desensitized to it, they're going to allow more of it to come in.
Yeah.
It'll
And
be
I mean,
normalized.
my girls don't experience this now because they're at a Rudolf Steiner school, but in the mainstream schools now
Oh, yeah.
from grade three, year three, which is an average 8-year-old, they are basically using iPads. Like it's compulsory for all of the kids to bring an iPad to school. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Whereas at the Rudolf Steiner School, they only start to use laptops in year 11 and 12 because of the kind of work that they're doing. They need to start using a laptop for their research and assignments and things like that and preparing them if they want to go on to uni or TAFE or whatever.
For a good reason. I believe there's been studies out there how they've shown where when young children are on even video games,
Yeah,
it rewires their brain. It makes them,
just
yeah, and it's
normalizing that.
violence. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's, yeah, it's not, I don't think it's healthy. That's just my opinion.
no,
I grew up with video games, but when we came home from school, we had like a half an hour or an hour. That's all. We were only allowed to play
yeah,
that stuff. And then we had to be outside and doing our chores or doing our homework. So we definitely raised differently.
yeah. Well, my mum was very strict and we weren't allowed any of that. And then it was only when we'd go to my dad's house once a fortnight. So then we would binge watch The Simpsons and binge play Nintendo and different things
Yeah.
that we could do because we were trying to make up for 2 weeks of not being allowed to do any of that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where it's like you want to have a healthy balance. You don't want to be so strict because if you're so strict, then your kids just want that even more, but then you don't want to just let them, there's got to be healthy boundaries in place too.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just crazy. But we'll get on to the next slide. So we just
Ooh, here we
wanted,
go.
yeah, we wanted to
Automatons.
we wanted to share with you, isn't this interesting how in a lot of the ancient hieroglyphics and a lot of these gods and how they were, you know, half human, half animal. And so, there's various different theories about this, and various different people have talked about, oh, they're just wearing a mask because they're just representing something and whatever else, or maybe they're just made up, or it's the idea of the deity or whatever. But Jennifer and I are kind of thinking, well, what if they
Yeah.
were automatons?
What if they were automatons from Atlantis that became enlightened and fully souled?
Yeah,
And that's why we look at them as if they held great knowledge, because they could have potentially have been great initiates if
yeah,
the Amilius group would have worked with them. So I think it's fascinating. I've never in my life would have thought about the perspective I have on
yeah.
these ancient hieroglyphics that I do
Now,
this day. Yeah.
yeah, it's just very, very interesting to consider that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, Jennifer, if you want to just mention here about, because you mentioned how that these could be automatons that had advanced their souls. And I'm,
Yes, they
I'm
were
not
my
sure if you
initiates.
want to just kind of maybe just touch on a tiny bit. We're going to go deeper into this into our next episode, but if you wanted to mention the two different temples and how they were able to.
Yeah, so the Amelius group, this is the final destruct what led to the final destruction is the Amelius group obviously wanted to give these automatons a chance to spiritually evolve. So when there was so many refugees and individuals fleeing, there was a particular high priest called Rata, and we're going to get into much deeper into Rata the next time we all meet up.
Mhm.
But he built temples in Egypt to one was called the Temple of Sacrifice and the other was the Temple of Beautiful, and the Temple of Sacrifice worked with them physically to get them to where they could spiritually evolve past of all the DNA manipulation they've endured. And then the Temple of Beautiful was the consciousness part of it. So you think about how these beings, they're so depicted as being great and having great keepers of knowledge. Thoth especially, I mean, he's a very common
Yeah.
one that's talked about. So was he a high initiate in these temples after the last fall of Atlantis?
Mhm.
Which would make a lot of sense to me. That's why they were so well brought down through the ages as gods, because they had the universal teachings with them,
Yeah.
potentially.
Yeah. I mean,
Makes more sense to me.
it does, and I think
It really does.
it's very important to consider. And I think that what's interesting with a lot of people that have done studying and gone over to Egypt and have gone through ancient manuscripts and things like that, and I think it's they've worked so hard and they've come up with some really fascinating theories to explain all of this. But then when you add in the puzzle piece of Edgar Cayce and his work, I feel personally it really fills in a lot of blanks that people
Yes,
have.
it's just it's so eye-opening in a way. And I don't know if a lot of other mystics speak of this type of stuff that went on in Atlantis. I think Casey goes into it as far as, well, from what I've found, it goes into it deeper than the others.
Yes,
So, but it also brings me to even like Isis.
yes,
Again, here we have a woman with wings. And one thing I want to mention with these hieroglyphics is we got the circle above the head. I think that's reaching spiritual enlightenment, potentially a symbolism of that. And I believe that this is Sekhmet to the right. Is that
yeah,
Sekhmet to the right?
mhm, yeah,
So we have this half feline, half human woman, which there's a lot of stories out there on Sekhmet. I'm really not thrilled with a lot of them. I think she's been like misinterpreted quite a bit.
yeah,
And I think she was a teacher. She had went through those, the Temple Beautiful and the Temple of Sacrifice, and came out as a high initiate.
hmm
So she was training these women, these automatons. I'm sure, I'm sorry, I don't know what really to call them, but they came out of these temples and they were continuing the Atlantean knowledge, which then turned into the Egyptian mysteries, you know,
yes. And then that passed down, and
and
a
then it
lot of
got
that was,
inverted.
yes, but a lot of that was followed, went into the Essene community, and they went to Egypt and they did initiations and studied that. And what's very exciting is Edgar Cayce goes into, he discusses the
All of
Essene
that.
community, doesn't he? Yeah, so we
Yes,
want to,
he does. And you know, it's interesting to me. I think I feel terrible. I don't know which mystic it was, but they said that the Egyptian Book of the Dead was once called the Egyptian Book of Life.
oh,
And I
wow.
thought, well, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
You know, and here we've got Anubis. I mean, there's another well-known deity with a dog head. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I mean, we could keep going on about this. I mean, Paula, we could talk
There's
about
so
the
many.
Greys. Like the
Yes.
Greys, we have these people that have this experience with alien abduction, things like that. They're dealing with these Greys that
Mm-hmm.
seem cold and don't have any feelings. Are they an automaton? I mean,
Yeah.
are they literally just a robot? And then you think about the cryptid world, dogmen, werewolves, pale crawlers,
The
Bigfoot,
abominable
of course.
snowman. Yeah, Bigfoot. Yeah.
That are those were those automatons? Are they automatons? Is this still being carried over today, just underground? And this they're releasing. I just always have questions, and I
Yeah.
just if this is what's going on, it would really make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it really would. Yeah, there's just so much more to it, isn't there? And so,
Yes.
yeah, so that's why I think it's very important to just keep an open mind and to, listen to all different kinds of theories and then take what resonates with you and piece it all together. And that's what we're doing. We're not saying anything is fact. We don't know, but we're just having fun exploring this and
It's
looking at
sure fun to talk about.
it is. It's really fun to talk about and just kind of piece together different things that Edgar Cayce has shared. Because you're right, Jennifer, he goes so deep into this. I think probably more deeply than anybody else that I've come across at this point in time. And the level of what he talks about, for anybody that's interested in learning more about Edgar Cayce, reading his books, they can be a little bit difficult to read. So sometimes you need to just read a little bit, then have a break, kind of just let it integrate and interpret it for yourself. But the depth and what he goes into is just
It's
so
mind
fascinating.
blowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny because even studying Blavinsky and Steiner, it's like they all answer each other's questions.
Yeah.
And Casey, like I said, he just seems to be the most detailed with it.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So they kind of came in a tier up. They came in a wave, we'll say, and left knowledge. Then another one came and started leaving deeper knowledge, and then here comes Casey,
Yep.
and he left some pretty wild knowledge.
And then,
So
well,
most,
since Cayce, I mean, there's been Dolores Cannon, and then there's this lady Sarah Bresque Cosme, however you say her name, sorry, and they're bringing in little bits of information about Atlantis as well. And
yeah,
it's all about, I mean, of course, when information is being channeled or coming through hypnosis or anything like that, it is going to be filtered through that individual person. So we don't know that everything is 100% correct. But when you start seeing things lining up, like even,
yeah,
we were saying, Jennifer, before we started filming, that we noticed that a lot of what Helena Blavatsky said about Atlantis, if anybody has watched that episode that I posted last week, then they will see that there are a lot of similarities to what Edgar Cayce says. And then with Rudolf Steiner, and then we're looking into Manly P. Hall and what he says about Atlantis. And when you're seeing all these different, when you're seeing all these different sources of knowledge and information, and then they're lining up, it's very, very interesting.
yeah,
And there's a common theme happening there.
yeah. And next time we all meet, we're going to talk more about Rata, and it just gets more fascinating from here. Believe it or not, I know it's a little mind blower here with these automatons and how they could potentially be in our current
Reality
society
today.
without
Yeah.
us even knowing it.
So,
So,
yeah.
anyways,
But we're super excited to get into Rata because that was one of Edgar Cayce's previous incarnations. And
so detailed,
yeah, it's going to be
so
so
detailed.
fascinating. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed what we've shared and it might just get your wheels spinning a little bit in your mind.
Just just have fun with it and just allow it to entertain you. Because
Yeah.
none of us, like we've Paula stated before, we really don't know. We're just trying to learn and trying to piece things together like the rest of us in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, Jennifer, for joining
Thank
me.
you.
And we'll see you all next time.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.